You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. I am here with Anna, and we have just a slew of very special guests with us today. I'll start with the infamous, legendary couple, Lori and Corey Cole, behind Obvious Games. I think you guys know. I'm just stalling because I didn't do my homework. No, of course, behind Quest for Glory, and Hero U, and some really fun stuff in development. We'll get talking. They're two of the most lovely people that you'd ever wish to spend time with and talk to, which is nice to know. This is a meet your hero situation with the Koss. So anyway, I've said enough. Welcome to the show, mates. How are you?
Hello, how are we? We're pretty good.
Lovely.
Well, I'm doing really well, thanks.
Wonderful. And you know, I guess before we get too wordy on everybody, we've got a third special guest with us today, admin over at the Classic Gamers Guild, and a good friend of ours, Josh Orion. Koss, how are you, mate?
I'm doing well, thank you. This is a bit surreal.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have all of us together to chat. I know Josh is a super fan. If anybody has the inkling to go back and listen to an episode of the Classic Gamers Guild podcast, there was a super fans episode with Josh and Hope VonStarnes talking about Quest for Glory and how much they love it. And now you get a chance, Josh, to talk about it in person with Lori and Corey. So that's pretty exciting for all of us.
Yeah, Josh has been a fan forever, as far as I know.
And if I recall, way back when, volunteered to do animation art for Hero U, and I regretfully turned him down. It's probably a mistake.
Yeah, like 20 years ago, back when the internet forums were a actual thing, I contacted you, and I still have a signed picture you guys sent me that got hanging up on my wall here.
Oh, that's lovely.
Well, when you get to know us better, we're just ordinary people and plenty of flaws, but we like to think we're kind of nice people, despite all the flaws.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I've been playing a few games lately made by actual friends of mine. And in the past, of course, I hadn't met people who had been making games. And now that I've met you and Lori and you, Corey, in person and talk to you and come to your streams that you host on Twitch, I can really hear your voices in the games that you make. But at the same time, I've played them so much and they're so much of a part of me is like I can hear my own voice in the Quest for Glory games as well. So like, I just love that you guys could do that.
Well, hooray. When, if you're playing one of our games and hear your own voice, I think that means we succeeded. As they are designed to feel a little bit different for everyone who plays them.
And for you to be a part of them. That's the goal we go into making, is that you should feel like this is your game, that this is your character and you're doing these things because that's what you want to do, not because that's the only choice you have in the game, which you do have in so many other kind of games.
Well, that's where that heart of role-playing comes from.
Yeah, one of the most fun things is having the online debates of who's got the best headcanon of what events happened and what's your hero's class, and who'd he marry. Yeah,
and it all so many different versions of the world. Effectively, everybody has their own instance of the game.
And I do occasionally read a post from someone talking about their headcanon and said, "Yeah, well, that might as well be right."
Why not?
That's clearly what you must have been thinking at the time. Even
so you have people maybe filling in gaps.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The way I view it is it's like the Marvel multiverse. It's like everything is actually canon. It's just in that version of it, it's true.
Yes. For given truth, yes, and the given instance of the reality, there's just multiple realities going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's still got to be a really cool position to find yourself in, where you're giving definitive answers on canon of a world that you created. That's really cool.
Yeah, but we'd also make things up. I mean, there are questions people ask that we never thought of, but then when we have come up with the answer for it, that becomes the canon. So it's created because of people asking those questions.
Right. Was there a point where you had to like start writing down what you were telling people just to, to remember what
not
the canon
as well
is now?
as we should. I do have a
That's what the
Bible.
online wikis are for.
A Bible for like Road to Redemption.
Quest for Glory, and another
I
one
don't
for
have a good one for
Road to
Quest for
Redemption,
Glory.
not for Hero U.
Yeah.
You did one with the when you were doing the book with Michelle.
Slightly different.
Yeah,
So, we did one for the book, but we have one
Right.
for the Hero U world, which collides.
Yeah, I came across that recently and said, should I send that out to anyone else? No, I think I better keep it secret. So yeah, there is a whole backstory to why this castle exists and why Hero U is in the castle and events going on in the world and who are the knights Illuminati.
And so yes, all of those things are there. The history is all there, and so any game set in that universe has to relate to those things. So yeah, we do that.
Yeah, Lori and I have talked about what we're going to do with the the warrior story and the paladin story and so on, and how that's all going to relate and what's going to be going on in the world outside the school. So the idea that we would have steadily escalating level of danger.
Mm-hmm.
That Sean is pretty much in a microcosm. He's at Hero U, and he's mostly just interested in himself and getting by, and making something of his own life, finding out what the story is with his
and nothing much is
father
going
and so
on in the outside
personal
world for him. I mean, he has a very peaceful time at the school, but as our stories progress, the world becomes progressively more dangerous as things start to happen, sometimes because of the heroes. And so therefore, the universe around them starts to change and the games start to alter because of what's happening.
So we do need to know these things in advance because we drop little hints.
Right.
So there's the name Aquino written in blood in one place in Road to Redemption that is relates to what's going on. The whole thing that's going on with the boss Wraith. There's stuff going on in the underground that is going to come back to haunt other players later on, and they'll also expand beyond the boundaries of the university itself. So there's some pretty heavy stuff going in the world for a comedy game.
Well, yeah, you have people that are doing what they've done with Quest for Glory, the same with Hero U, and I mean, many of us are those people. We're just playing it over and over to see everything that can happen and all the different ways that you can play the game and all the different ways that you can treat people and how it affects the gameplay, because much like in Quest for Glory 4, people change how they feel about you and how they talk to you, and depending on what you do in the game. So there's just so much to it.
And I love when I read stuff from fans who go back and play Quest for Glory every year, every few years, and are saying, "Wait a second, I just read a post of somebody doing something, and I didn't know that was in the game." Or, I just discovered this thing that in 20 years of playing the game that I've never noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always a lot of fun to read that and see that some of the little things we've hidden, finally get found. Because, it's never intended for every player to find everything.
Or to get all the jokes either.
With everybody putting out screenshots and all their little, oh my God, I can't believe I found this. Has anybody else seen this? And then they go to all of the Discords and everywhere else and going, have you guys seen this? Am I the only one? Seriously? And it's it's just such a cool process.
Yeah, and it's fun for us. And then there's
scenes where you get the joke, where you didn't get the joke when you were younger.
Sometimes I don't get all the jokes, so...
Well, that came because of the old Rocky and Bullwinkle show, from the cartoon show, that when you were a kid... There were so many jokes that they had in that totally went over your head. They were written for adults, and they were written, for references that no kid really has. But the whole point was, it didn't matter because it was funny. And eventually, after you've watched it again, you understand what those jokes were that went over your head. And so therefore, it's even more rich because of that. And that's exactly what we were trying to do. By having so many different jokes, so many different references, we knew you couldn't ever get them all, but you could have fun learning what they were, and eventually, maybe if you played it again, you'd get it.
Mm-hmm. And you gave us a reason
or
to play
maybe not.
it.
Like Sean and Hero U makes some jokes to try to make friends at dinner time, and one of them, Lori, just got around to writing the joke that Sean gives the punchline for in the game. That was the Franz like these joke.
Can we hear it?
I'll have to look it up.
Can we find that again?
Exactly, because I can't do it from memory. But yeah, I had to actually put it in the thing. After all these times, I finally wrote the joke for the punchline.
Oh, I love it.
And there's the other one about the bridge players, the best played games of Weiss and Ben. And I'm like, who are Weiss and Ben? And that's Lori just picked up made up a couple names that fit, but they're supposed to be famous bridge players in the Hero U universe that are not in ours, but it's all reference to the best laid plans of Mice and Men gang after the Glay. Robert Burns, was that? I think so. It's a Robert Burns quote twisted to become a bridge joke involving some bridge players that nobody's ever heard of because they didn't exist except in the game.
Yes.
So even if you know all the references,
right.
you may not get all the jokes.
In Rogue to Redemption is at supper time, Sean gives the punchline. After all, with fronds like D's, who needs anemones? And so, of course, that's going to go over everybody's head who had no clue what this is. But Sean found it funny, and you could see the other students didn't get it either. But it's a faghood, which is a Shaggy Dog story that comes to a punchline that's a pun. And the actual lead into this line is, fanciful chapeaux were all the rage, and none were as popular as the stylish confections bedecked with anemone flowers to wear at every court occasion. They were hugely expensive because Belle Francais only provided the flowers to Parisian haberdashers. However, a resourceful Albion hat maker named Miss Melody began making bonny bonnets with ferns instead. They were so charming that the market for hats with windflowers crashed overnight. After all, with fronds like D's, who needs anemones?
I love that. Oh, that'd make at least two people
and of course,
groan and leave the room.
I had never heard of that use of the word anemone. As a flower, that there are actually two different kinds of anemones. So I just got the fronds and anemones as being, sea creatures, sea plants.
See, multi-level jokes. That's it, though. Exactly.
But it's
that's
wordplay and puns like that I grew up reading from you guys. That that's the type of humor that I enjoy.
We'll try not to make them quite so inaccessible in Quest for Glory.
But also, I love the idea that you can, learn more about these things and understand them better as you go on.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's part of that must be influenced by Monty Python, as you've said, sort of their humor and meta humor and in-jokes and things really was a big influence on putting together the humor in your games.
I really enjoyed it.
Or back before that, in the 70s, there was a group called Firesign Theater that did radio plays, and my brother was my older brother. I must say I'm not that old, am I? My older brother was a big fan of them, and when I went to high school, my senior year of high school, it turned out that several of my nerd friends were all Firesign Theater fans, and so penny lines about. And then it turned out that the actual Firesign Theater group lived up in Santa Barbara, where I went to college, and one of their skits was about George Papoon running for president of the United States and under the platform "Not Insane." And he said he was the only one who was the only presidential candidate who was certifiably not insane because he had the certificate they'd given him on release from the asylum that said he'd recovered and was no longer insane. And his shtick was wearing a paper bag over his head. I think Pat Paulson do something similar? I can't remember. But anyway, George Papoon had the paper bag and the Papoon balloon. So I had a wonderful thing where I had a Buick convertible, and so I drove around the Santa Barbara campus with George Papoon with the bag over his head in the back seat, and them filming it for a fireside theater thing. So that was fun. So you know, everyone has their own heroes and creators they follow, and then getting to meet them is a lot of fun. So let's see, the Quest for Glory Omnipedia, someone posted, don't poke the Antwerp. And of course, the Antwerp creature was when Lori went to the artist and said, why don't you all, come up and design some sort of a, creature that could be in the game. And when they came up with the one inspired by the, was it the things that you box with, or was it the bouncy thing?
Bouncy thing you sat on. It looked a little like an Antwerp with horns on the head, and you bounced on it like a huge rubber ball. Was where what was the inspiration for the design.
Anyway, so then we remembered a friend of ours who's very ticklish talked about how she had a safe word for when she was being tickled, and she picked the safe word Antwerp. If she said Antwerp, that meant that, because if you just say, stop tickling me, that's just incitement to tickle people more.
Exactly. Better to have
So everybody had a safe word that if they said meant, there's no fun anymore, stop right now. And so hers was Antwerp, and we decided that with a W in the middle of it, Antwerp is just a very silly name in English, so it all came together. So, just stuff in our games comes from everywhere.
It's like Antwerp's origin and roots in BDSM, it sounds like.
Probably. But we don't actually go into that part,
You're a little less on the nose. We appreciate that.
Yes. Yes, our games are all sweetness and innocence and light. Lori made a video trailer for Hero U talked about romance, and one of the scenes she used to illustrate romance was a wolf licking Sean in the face, and people were like, "Ooh, bestiality," and we're like, "No," but to us, romance is good times and romantic relationships and so on, and we don't think of romance and sex as being synonymous, but apparently some people do. So, you never know how people will take something.
Well, this is the internet after all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and if it could be misinterpreted in a salacious way, it's going to be.
Yes, and the most innocent things we do. Oh, well.
I'm curious about your writing process. Do you guys, Lori, I know, obviously head of the writing department and everything, but as a couple using that to your benefit, do you find yourselves just filling your evenings talking aloud about potential canon or headcanon ideas for the games?
To an extent, and that's what you do in bed. It's, instead of sleeping, you're late at night and you say, well, what about this? And generally our communication is late at night when, past the time where we should have gone to bed.
Or falling asleep. So, yeah, actually, we got a question about that in AMA, what's it like to be a romantic couple? And said, well, I don't know how much romance there is at this point, but, but we do sometimes roll over in bed and start floating ideas and bouncing them back and forth. Usually that turns into an argument of, well, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But then it says, but what if, and then we'd start, riffing off the ideas and, we have a lot of fun with these arguments, and sometimes, out of one of the, I'm famous for saying just completely off the wall stupid things, and Lori's the more serious one who will sometimes take my really stupid ideas and say, well, maybe there's a there's a grain of something useful in there.
Let's meet in the middle.
It's not just a stupid idea.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the fun's probably working out the compromise to see how it would get it to work the way you want it to.
Yeah.
Against the arguments of the other person.
Yeah, and it is everything's a compromise anyway. Whenever you're making games, you're compromising and you're trying to get, come up with ways to justify everybody in the team doing stuff. And so, games are all, improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yours in particular.
But realistically speaking, Lori does about
yeah.
90% of it, and I come in once in a while and try to put in my 2 cents worth.
Okay. And then Lori, are you more of like a sit down and write, or as it comes to you, rush to a pen and paper and throw it down?
I will sit in bed, just sitting in bed, literally lying down, and think about what's going on. I'll plan these things all out in my head, just in the quiet of being alone and not doing anything other than sitting.
Right.
So and I don't bother to write down a lot of things until I actually use it. So I do have a very good memory for relationships and what I'm doing. Details, maybe not so much, but what I'm trying to get to is what I keep track of.
Right.
So you mean you can't tell me what that 1 pixel in Game 5 means, on day 3? No?
I can't even tell you what that joke meant,
Okay, but
that I wrote.
I do wonder, Lori, if you could tell me. I was reading an interview with you in the Quest for Glory 5 strategy guide, and you mentioned that you were working on the multiplayer version of Dragonfire. What was that supposed to be about?
Well, that one was going to be more of a combat-oriented thing where you played either Elsa or Magnus Opus or the hero, and you would compete in a pared-down contest to be king.
That's kind of cool.
So sort of like the arena in Quest for Glory 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just take the battle elements, yeah.
Yes, to take the battle elements, and you would play together, but you're competing at the same time. So it was not.
Now that
really
was one of the 2 multiplayer versions of it, because the first one that Sierra approached us, or actually Yosemite Entertainment, which was the division of Sierra and Oakhurst, approached Lori and said that they wanted to rebrand their game, The Realm, which was about to come out in a few months, as World of Quest for Glory, and they wanted to know if we could write some quests for it. And we had the meeting, and I asked, okay, well, what kind of what have you got so far for quests? What kind of quest editor and quest engine do you have? And they sort of looked at me and said, quest interface, quest engine? Are we supposed to have something like that? And at which point we kind of said, I don't think you can turn that game into a World of Quest for Glory at such a short notice.
Not quite.
So, they had a game in which, that had great multiplayer interactivity and character development system and combat, but they really hadn't put any thought at all into how quests were going to go into the game.
Well, then, is World of Warcraft close to what you imagined you might have created?
In many ways, yes. Yeah,
what we would have liked to. I mean, believe me.
Yeah, I don't know that we would have actually made something that good.
That was a huge team.
Well, yes, and in things like World of Warcraft, they have gnomes, just like my gnomes. Effectively, we all love the idea of nutty gnomes.
Exactly, and it's kind of like it's a fantasy world that fans help to create and promote. At least that's kind of what you were looking at doing. So.
Mm-hmm.
We do know many of the designers and developers in the World of Warcraft teams have been Quest for Glory fans, and
not so much.
Yeah,
though.
no, I've heard that, Lori, from several people there.
Okay,
and they said that they took some ideas from Quest for Glory, but I would not, certainly would not say that it's based on Quest for Glory or anything like that.
No,
but
no.
we everybody steals from everybody else.
I do know that the head artist of the cinematic team is a Quest for Glory fan.
Cool. Which one is that?
Taryn Gregory.
Oh, really?
What was the first name?
I remember one time posting
Taryn
about.
Gregory.
He posted about what music you listen to while doing your crafting stuff. And I posted out, I listened to Sierra soundtrack, specifically Quest for Glory, and he excitedly replied back with that he liked Quest for Glory.
That's
and
awesome.
I was like, bonus points for him.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, one of the nice things about the Blizzard developers is they are all gamers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the weird thing for us when we went to Sierra, is that there were so few gamers working at Sierra. And of course, when you're working 10, 12-hour days, you don't have a whole lot of time for gaming. But, we naively thought that we'd come out to Oakhurst and, immediately get a D&D group together and stuff, or get invited to a D&D game, and discover that, no, there were like, one or two D&D players at the company. Eventually, a few of them started, Stuart Mulder started a board gaming group, but, there hadn't even been much of that. So there was not much gaming going on there.
No, I guess that's what you were looking for. That's what you started with. And I think,
Yep.
It's so influenced the Quest for Glory games, your tabletop gaming and all that. It's visible in every aspect, because it was nothing like what Sierra was doing before.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd like to make games that are slightly different each time and not pull from the same mythology effectively that we've done with Quest for Glory and that. But it's such a rich, mythology. There's so much more we could tell. That's why the Summer Days at Hero U is the same world. It's because that's just the setting, and, it makes a great start for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also because of fan demands, because we've had, fans come to us and say, I really wanted to learn more about Elsa, or, what's Rakish's story and stuff like that. And we start thinking about it and say, we could do a whole game about that, whichever one. So yeah, there's a reason why we kind of stay in the same universe. But there's obviously different styles of games we could be making. I had a wonderful time making Castle Dr. Brain, and we've talked about me making a puzzle game for Transolar, and came up with two different concepts, one of which is based on some short stories that Lori wrote in our magazine, The Spellbook, on consulting magicians, sort of a riff off Sherlock Holmes, except the guy is a wizard instead of a little like Harry Dresden, but more comical. And then Lori decided that, no, we can't do that one because she wanted to write the stories, and she was too busy with Summer Days. So then we came up with Puzzleworthy, with an entirely different setting, more of a science fictional and kind of a 30s, Art Deco look and stuff like that. And entirely different game. Laura Bow meets Castle Dr. Brain, I guess.
Ooh,
but
I like that.
and that's the one that we may be doing. But first, I have to come up with some puzzles, and I discovered that the problem is that when I didn't know what I was doing, I could just come up with stuff and eventually get it to work. Although making Castle Dr. Brain was very hard. But today I'm like, well, I have to do better than that. I have to make really great puzzles. And then, of course, you get writer's block because it's really hard to come up with really great puzzles that haven't been done before.
It was so much fun watching you play Dr. Brain on your Twitch stream, you guys. I mean, go through the puzzles and play your own. Oh, I just can't get over how neat that is to watch.
Oh, sweet. So yeah, I could do another, set of puzzles just like the ones in Castle Dr. Brain, and that'd be pretty doable. But there, things I wanted to do, like for the arithmetic puzzle, I wanted to have either generated or a database for that, so that you couldn't just read the answers online. You'd have to actually solve the puzzle each time.
Trick the internet.
And then, lately I began to question that and say, do people actually want challenging hard games, or would they, they rather have ones that they can get through and can win?
Nowadays, that's a good question. There's a novelty to both,
See,
but do you
if
have...
I know ahead of time, I'm cool with it. But if it's like, I just want to hop into a game for 5-10 minutes. I don't want to be spending that trying to solve one puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a different game style to be wanting to solve puzzles, rather than just going through a game like World of Warcraft where you're just doing stuff.
Right.
Yeah, World of Warcraft is more activities than puzzles.
Yeah.
and eventually you either like doing those activities or you don't, or you enjoy the you're goal oriented and you're trying to get a certain amount of currency or something, so you keep doing the activities to get that currency. So it's more of a process than a goal.
I
Whereas,
do have a bit of a question here. That's kind of a backtracking.
I'm sorry?
I do have a bit of a question here. It's a little bit backtracking because you guys were talking about making the different types of games. What was actually the genesis for changing up the settings, going from like medieval Germany to Arabian Nights to the Sahara Desert and Savannah or whatever? Was that just because you wanted to change the setting, or just something that happened?
Well, we wanted to make a really epic experience and have a wide variety of environments.
Because the whole anachronicity is one of my favorite things of the series.
Starting out in Germany was a choice because we wanted to start where everybody was familiar with the kind of mythology we were going to pull through initially. The idea of the fairy tale land that everybody, who read these things would have as a commonality, or anybody that played King's Quest kind of had the commonality and knew what they were, the kind of world we were getting into, so that they felt familiar. And so they had this, their own backstory that they could pull on to know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. So then...
Yeah, or Tolkien, that had that Western European setting. So we knew that we wanted to do something more exotic, but we decided that, we didn't know if we were actually be making more than one games here. Certainly didn't know if they were going to let us make more than one game. Mm-hmm. So we decided we would stay with a traditional, Western European setting that, fantasy fans would be comfortable with. But we wanted to break that comfort as soon as we could.
Yeah.
Well, it worked.
A few moments ago we were talking a little bit about Dr. Brain, and so Corey, I don't even really have a specific question for you. I just kind of wanted to hear your take on what that whole experience was like for you to do Dr. Brain.
Well, where it started out was that Ken Williams called a meeting of all the designers and producers and executive management at Sierra and said basically that we have won the game at Graphic Adventure Games. We own that market, and if we're going to expand, we need to branch out. And that he just felt that there was very rich opportunities available in the edutainment or educational game space. And so he asked each of the designers to come up with 5 or 10 proposals for educational games that they thought would be fun and they'd like to make. And then he gave 2 examples, I think, of the type of games he was looking for. And one of those examples was something called the Mathematical Mansion, that you would have basically a series of mathematical puzzles that you would need to solve in order to do things. So we kind of having an idea of how to sell things to executives, said, for one of my proposals, I made sure that I had the proposal Castle of Dr. Brain that was inspired by the Mathematical Mansion. I said this will be a series of, logic and mathematical and word puzzles that, that will let you advance through this this castle. And then I gave the basic storyline. We each wrote, just a couple paragraphs on each proposal, or maybe a page. And then Lori, did you want to talk about fairy tales, or want me to?
Well, we just, I said, okay, Mixed Up Mother Goose was a very popular game, but I thought it could be extended, and I thought it should be Mixed Up Fairy Tales. And that's what I proposed at the same time. And then we proposed about 7, 8, 10 games in addition to those. But those were the ones that were chosen.
So the point to that is Mixed Up Mother Goose was designed by Roberta Williams, who was in the meeting, and Ken and Roberta were the 2 main deciders for which proposals to go with. So Ken, of course, loved Castle of Dr. Brain because it riffed off of his idea for Mathemagical Mansion, and Roberta, of course, loved Mixed Up Fairy Tales because it riffed off a game she'd made.
Well played, yeah.
I see what you did there.
The third one was EcoQuest. That was
I love that.
Gaino Hayne and Jane Jensen.
Right, yeah.
So that was the genesis of it. They said, go ahead and make a prototype. I got assigned John Bach, who later did Lighthouse, to do art for it, and I picked one scene of the game, which was the code room, with the Hangman game and so on, and did a prototype of that. And they liked it, but they decided to assign a different artist when we actually did the project and got Andy Hoyos to do it. And that was actually quite a wonderful decision because Andy did just, I said, I want this to be kind of weird and wacky. And he came up with the idea of making, all the hallways curved and everything on curves instead of, plain rectangular things, and the very wacky design for the outside of the castle. So that was a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Lori went off to do some self-improvement courses with LifeSpring. And I was alone trying to come up with the initial puzzles for it. And I said, okay, this will be easy. I'll get a bunch of those puzzle books everyone buys from bookstores, magazines, shelves, and so on. And I started looking through them and found out that, when I got like a dozen different puzzle books, that they had like 4 or 5 different types of puzzles repeated over and over.
Right.
And that not only that, but they weren't ones that worked well on a computer. And so I was in complete despair and panic. And I did a little bit of work on, I called up Lori and says, you got to come home, get out of your class, come home and help me with this. And she said, nope, I'm doing this. And you can figure it out. You're good. And a little tough love there. So it was really, really terrifying, but it was also the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. To come up with original puzzles that, of course, they're not entirely original. Like the, front door is the similar to the old game Simon. So I did do some derivative stuff, and then there's an acrostic, and there's a magic square, and so on. So they're all things that were known puzzles. But my wonderful game plan of stealing ideas from puzzle books didn't work at all. The elevator, the 3-dimensional elevator maze, I'm rather proud of, and I know a lot of people hate it because it's actually hard.
Yeah, the art direction of the game is fantastic. It captures what I personally like about the other team's game, about some of the LucasArts games where I don't know, Sam and Max, perhaps the monkey games, where like you said, it has kind of bendy walls and a more cartoonish feel to it that fits really well. It's lovely.
And then for the sound design, we had Mark Siebert, who also did the hero theme for Heroes Quest. I guess he did most or all of the music in the original Heroes Quest for Glory 1. And he came up with the idea of using a classical music soundtrack behind Mixed Up Fairy Tales. Or did you do that, Lily?
Actually, it was our producer that came up with that idea.
Was that Jay, or who did it?
It was, you said his name earlier.
Mark Siebert?
No, that wasn't my producer. It was
Okay.
My producer was the board games.
Oh, Stuart Mulder.
Stuart Mulder. He was a great producer. I really enjoyed having him.
Yeah, he was amazing. He got me to read the book Peopleware, and along with the Mythical Man Month, and really, had studied software management and how to work with developers and stuff. A brilliant guy who later went on to Microsoft and became an executive in their Xbox division. But anyway, so we came up with the idea of classical music for that. And then talking with Mark about what to do with music for Castle Dr. Brain, he said, what about rock ballads? And, well, I had no idea what a rock ballad was, but I said, okay, we'll give it a try. And came up with the more metal and rock soundtrack for Castle Dr. Brain. It just really worked fantastically and set off the artwork and the wackiness of the game. So just everybody, games are a team effort. It's not like we design a game and that's the game. we come up with the ideas for the game and, do the writing for the game. But what the game is the collaboration between everybody in the team.
Artists have a huge effect on the game. It's, the cartoony characters for Quest for Glory 1, Hero's Quest, definitely affected how the tone of the game was. And I'm very, very proud of the J.P. Selwood's art. We've really done a lot with his stuff. And he's very versatile. So you've got we have that great look for Rogue to Redemption. We have a very stylized, simple style for the Summer Days series. And of course, any game we're going to do in the future was probably, unless it's in the Summer Days, genre, will probably change the art style yet again to fit the mood of the game.
Yeah, so, you guys talk about, kind of hero worship on your favorite developers. Well, we have our art meetings every week, and practically every week, J.P. Selwood comes up with something new that we're just kind of gushing at. It's not very professional. We're in a team meeting. It's just too good. I mean, we want to feed the artists' egos. We want them to have confidence, because that is one of the biggest problems of being an artist, is you always see the flaws in your own work. And certainly, as game designers and writers, we see the flaws in our own work. But you still have to fight through that and get something done. But JP is just so good, as Lori said, so versatile that we never know what we're going to get from him, but we do know it'll be beautiful.
Well, Sierra was really good for that. I mean, getting us to love you guys and the artist and the developers and pretty much anybody involved in the game, because there would be jokes about them and they'd be included in the game. It's the only company in my life that I've ever encountered that made me just as excited about meeting Lori and Corey or Al or, Mark Crow as anybody else, because in the game, like they're characters as well. You guys were real to us. You were also characters and you were the game. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was something completely unique.
And it was an unusual thing. No.
Well, even afterwards, you don't see very many games posted that there's just,
exactly.
They have the developer's name.
I'm currently reading Sid Meier's
Oh, it's so
memoir,
good, Corey, isn't it? Isn't it? I finally got it digitally.
Oh,
it is brilliant. I love it. Highly recommended. Go get that memoir.
Yeah, it came out last fall, but I just heard about it a couple weeks ago and immediately picked it up, and it's just amazing.
I knew it would be. I play his games too much not for it to have been. Oh, it's so good. So smart.
The fallacy of that, the reason why companies don't do it is because they don't want to turn somebody else into, the reason by the game, because you can't always keep the employees or the person.
Right.
So that's why Sierra moved away from it too.
Later on.
And credits were not important because they want the company to be the important
later
thing.
as you were getting closer to Vivendi.
Although kind of short-sighted, we always felt, we fought hard to get all the team members into credits in the manual and in the game, because
yes,
it's the game is a sum total of the people working on it.
Exactly. We even knew who Ken was as kids.
And it wasn't easy. We had to fight for that at times.
I imagine so.
Yeah, it kind of goes to show, you can see it best in effect where we recently interviewed Noah Faustine over at LucasArts. I actually unfortunately wasn't able to make it. It was Vic and Anna, but the point is that it was a great interview, lovely, very talented man. But the numbers are lower on that than we kind of would expect listener wise when you compare it to you guys and Al Lowe and obviously Ken and Roberta, etc. So it just kind of goes to show, like, we know you guys by name and Scott and Mark, etc. and Christy and Jane, so on and so forth. Whereas Noah did huge things for classic adventure games besides The Fates of Atlantis. Worked on some amazing games over at LucasArts, but people don't know his name like they do the Sierra people.
Yeah, it's interesting because we know Noah. I can't say we know him well, but we're very well acquainted with him from a lot of game designer conferences and stuff. We're part of the super secret game design workshop group that Noah's one of the founders of. And he's a good guy, but we didn't actually know that he had worked so much on these games. I've only recently found, how many things he had his fingers in, and like Sid's book, I just learned that he credits Noah for coming up with the insult sword fighting in Secret of Monkey Island, which was just an absolutely brilliant mechanic.
Isn't it though? Yeah, and which he talks about a little bit in our podcast episode. So when you're done reading Sid Meier's book, have a listen to our Noah Faustine episode. It's pretty good. He's done some amazing stuff.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to. But yeah, we know him more as a producer than as a designer, developer, and so it's interesting.
He equates game design to food in a way that's just absolutely lovely. You'll have to hear him talk about it.
Okay.
Oh, and he has some great stories. I remember him talking about and he went back before we did in the game industry. So his anecdotes about early mistakes in the arcade games is really, interesting.
He had a hilarious story about the one that they put a camera in so that people could put their face up with their credits, and said that they did a test in a local arcade and very quickly yanked those.
Oh, no. Put your face up. Right. I get it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
In the arcade. Literally, they thought, what could go wrong with that? It's in public. Well, guess what?
Boy. That's amazing.
Again, where there's a will, there'll be somebody that finds a way.
Yes.
So yeah, great conversationalist and raconteur. So yeah, lots of hidden heroes in the game industry. We've lost a few people from our teams. Ken Nishue died young, and Carlos Escobar was the infamous programmer at Sierra that always had the acerbic wit, and was the one who got us all into joining up to buy lottery tickets and such. This was the real total character, and he died a few years ago at like age 45. So it was just very sad, the people that gone from us far too soon. So we're starting to feel we turned 65 this year, so we're starting to feel that maybe we're not kids anymore.
I'm on a.
We weren't kids when we were at Sierra, though. I mean, we were over 30 when we started at Sierra, which was really old at the time for a game.
That's true. In our heads, we would have pictured you guys to have been a bunch of 18-year-olds fresh off, but it's no, actually, a whole bunch of people, you guys and Al, were much older, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, but we never lost our love of gaming. That's what kept some of us in the industry. Is that we enjoy games. We love it. We do this because it is our life's work.
Yeah, Lori spent her whole life preparing to become a game director without ever knowing that such a thing existed, because she was a creative writing minor, school teaching credentials, took art classes, and got interested in film animation, took animation classes.
Wow.
And did music, plays the accordion, and so basically, turned out that every single thing she'd done in her life, and of course playing games and game mastering games, every single thing she did in her life all led up to the perfect combination of things that Sierra needed for a game director.
That couldn't have been orchestrated better, Lori. Nice.
Yeah. Who knew? I mean, I was going to be a teacher. I was going to, that was my job. I would have been that the rest of my life.
God. And you were a teacher.
Could have gotten a job.
Us, you guys were our very first and best teachers. You taught us to spell, and you taught us not to stick lockpicks up our nose too soon.
Yes, yes. Yes, important safety tips. Yes.
So the only qualification that Lori was missing was that she wasn't a programmer, so she had to marry one of those.
Clearly. That was the only reason I married Corey, obviously. I would never have been in games, computer games of all things, without Corey as a major influence there. Because, after all, I still don't program. I may have the kind of logic to do it, but I don't have the patience or inclination.
Lori was a little nervous around computers until I introduced her to WordStar, and suddenly she realized that she no longer ever had to make a typographical error, and said, "Okay, that's a typewriter replacement. I love it."
So the most important thing I learned about computers, and computer games in particular, is that you can't make a bad mistake. You can always undo. You can always start over, and the only way to lose is to quit. And I thought that was the most powerful lesson one can have in life, is to realize that making a mistake is not a fatal thing. It is not a problem. It is simply a learning
experience. It just might be a fatal exception error.
And
you can get a patch for that, so it's okay.
Yeah, really. It may affect your life for a while and may screw things up, but it's not the end-all, be-all of life, and that you can keep going. And I thought those lessons were, more important than anything you can teach in school.
And if I went through the litany of all the times that I failed in a project, or one of my projects has been canceled, or I've been laid off or fired, or I've simply screwed up and not done a job well, it's a long list, and keeps going on to this day. But you learn to basically pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And that if you play enough lottery tickets, one of them might hit. That's probably a bad metaphor because those cost money.
Although I won $15 on one today on a $3 ticket, so you're right. At least there.
Well, there you go.
Well, I just had that discussion come up because I mentioned Carlos Escobar. He at one point the lottery jackpot got really high, and so he convinced a bunch of us at Sierra to pool our money and each put in $20 or whatever, and buy a whole bunch of tickets. And he had some scheme of numbers close to fives. He got the whole wheel of numbers. And we came really, really close to winning that lottery. As it was, I think everybody got like, $50 for the 5 they put in or whatever, or the 10 they put in. So we actually made a profit, which is pretty rare in the lottery. Didn't quite actually win it. And our team won a Sega Genesis once from a Burger King contest.
That's awesome.
That had to do with eating an awful lot of Burger King food and having an awful lot of tickets. So if you get enough tickets, sooner or later, you might get a winner, and that is life. Keep getting tickets, but preferably ones you don't have to take too much risk to get. All right, Lori, I should start entering the lottery. It's clear.
So I want to take a minute to bring up that, all right, today was kind of an exciting day. Paul, you sent off a picture. Of course, none of you can see it because this is a podcast, but I'll explain it. It's a picture of his screen, and it's got a bunch of Switch games you can pick from. And one of the Switch games you can pick from is Road to Redemption, Hero U. So that's super exciting. Congratulations, guys. Was it a lot of, how much work was it to get it onto the Nintendo?
Oh, it was totally an insane amount of work, which is to say that I'm on Discord. I had set up our Discord. So actually setting up the Discord was key. We made some really good contacts through that. One of the guys who contacted me was this guy who says, I'd like to convert Hero U Road Redemption to Nintendo Switch through my company. And of course, we get all the time, we get like voice actors wanting to be in the games and so on, or people wanting to do art or programming for us, or marketing, and we never know which ones are legitimate. But this time I said, okay, well, let's follow up on this, and talk to him, and it really sounded like he knew what he was talking about, and we made a deal with him, and then he went off and worked on it for a while. I got a Nintendo developers thing, and got in one of their eDev kits. And then we stopped hearing from him for a while. And I said, that's probably my fault. I haven't followed up on it. So meanwhile, we'd been working on patches of the game on the Windows and Mac and Linux. And we finally had what I thought was a pretty stable version of the game that, was much better than the original release. So I let him know we had an update, and he said, oh, great. We've just about got our version working. And so he, and you say, this is the right one? Okay, so we got all the new stuff in the version. And a couple months after that, they had the game fully up and running, and He sent me a document on what they were going to do with the user interface to make it work with the Nintendo that was very detailed and pretty good. And so, yes, Silesia Games of Poland did all the real work on getting us onto Switch. And then I made a decision that was the opposite of what we did for the initial launch. Is when we originally launched Road to Redemption on PC platforms, we decided not to spend any money on marketing and publicity. Then just kind of let word of mouth carry it, and it was disappointing. Did not do as well as we hoped it would. So this time I hired Emily Morganti, whose name you may not have heard, but she is very famous in the adventure game industry as the publicist for Telltale Games and Wadjet Eye and Ron Gilbert and all kinds of things. And so she's the adventure game expert. And so she has been developing a publicity campaign for us. And we're hoping that we can make a really big splash by relaunching on the Nintendo Switch, correcting most or all the mistakes that we made the first time around. We chose a $20 price point as opposed to our original $35 on PC because we didn't think $35 would wash on the Switch. And we hope this is really going to be, the start of something beautiful. So we're very, very excited that it's out. But amount of work I had to do, not much.
That's good, because you guys...
letting other people know,
You're doing it all simultaneously, right? I mean, aren't you working on, like, voice acting and casting for summer days? I mean, you've got a lot of projects on the go right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a successful company, and this applies to anyone who wants to be a writer, by the way, if you think you want to write novels, or you want to write games or create games, you can't go out there and create a finished novel or finished game and then send it off to publishers and wait and go back and forth and get a bunch of rejections and edit it and so on. You'll spend years at that, and what you really need to do is what we call pipeline. So you finish writing a book, you immediately start on, if you haven't already, start on your next book and be writing that while you're waiting to hear from publishers on the first one. So we do the same thing. We have 3 or 4 projects in the pipeline at any given time. So we have Hero U for the Switch. We have finished principal writing and art for Summer Days at Hero U, Tilly's Tale. We actually broke Summer Days up into 2 games. And we did the voice recording. We got Dave Gilbert of Wadjet Eye to direct the voice recording for us.
And, he's so organized.
We now need to do an engineering phase on that. And break that sound out. And meanwhile, Lori has started writing Summer Days at Hero U, Theo's Adventure. And in theory, and our artists have started doing some prototypes for Puzzleworthy, and that's waiting for me to be a little more productive. But if you don't have those things in the pipeline, you end up with these big gaps of time where you don't need any artists, but what are you going to do? Are you going to lose your art team because they'll all leave for other projects? So you always want to have multiple irons in the fire.
I imagine so. Now, time's getting on. I do want to ask, because I have listener mailbag, which is coming up shortly. But if you, Josh, have any other questions that you would like to ask before we move on as well.
I kind of have 2. One, I wanted to know about, you happen to have like a bird theme going on with the heroes that, in Hero U, the hero from Quest for Glory was split into 4 different people: Hawk, Falcon, Wren, and Owl. Is there any significance to the bird naming motif you have going on there?
Well, all right. Those names came out of the novel that I wrote about Quest for Glory, and quote unquote. We really filed off the serial numbers of Quest for Glory and retold the story with a way that solved the problem. My co-writer came up with this idea of having, instead of doing every character class, we'd have a family of kids. Each one was a different character class, and I thought that was a brilliant way of handling it. And the idea of the name of the birds, well, it really kind of fit their personality in a sense, which character got which name. except for Ren, who renames herself as Fox. But it was the idea that the people where they arrived in the first place, when the pre-story of how these kids arrived in this remote village in the Alpine forests of Germany type of thing, and nobody could understand what they were saying. So they said they suddenly appeared there. They must have been brought here by the birds, of course, because everybody thinks if somebody's magically brought there, it had to be birds. So
is that sort of like babies coming from the stork?
Bringing in the stork. The stork clearly brought them.
Well, now we know their parents' name.
The parents' name is significant.
And there's a whole other. There's a prologue to the book that the Gypsy's Tale that Lori and do you write it or Michelle? You and Michelle?
Yeah, we both wrote it.
Yeah, they collaborate on it. So anyway, it basically tells the secret backstory as to how these people ended up in that village, and it really gives an entire different look at the story, and sort of ties in with it kind of sort of ties in with Quest for Glory, Somaria, but not really.
So the book does kind of deviate from what the actual game does, because for me, the real thing that the game does is it says anybody can be a hero. And certainly you start out as an amateur doofus who has no, significant backstory and is anything that the player wants them to be. But they aren't the chosen one. They're certainly not chosen by anybody's standards except by their own.
Well, except for some prophecies.
There's prophecies,
but you could only come in from the east.
Right.
There was no other way.
That's it. Precisely. Anybody could have fulfilled a prophecy. It's just that you happen to be the one that actually did. So that's the whole trick. It is not that somebody had to be genetically or, the right son of the king to do these things. It's that anybody could have done it, but you're the one that did.
Right.
And the problem I had a little bit with the book is it does say that these kids are the offspring of a king. And that's why they have these special magic items that they start out with.
And not a particularly likable king either.
Well, no.
But, he's a bit arrogant, but he is a king. So, yeah, it does kind of lose the everyman idea of the games. So, maybe it wasn't the right backstory, but I don't know. I like it.
It's a story.
It's a good story.
And it goes its own direction.
And you said you had one other question, Josh? You might as well get that in there.
Yeah, this one's the probably kind of controversial, but it was I wanted to kind of get a final say on your thoughts on the definitive. Is he actually named Devon Aidendale?
No.
He's absolutely not Devon Aidendale. If somebody wants to be Devon Aidendale, that's okay with us. But the whole idea is again this everyman concept, and the hero is exactly who you choose to make the hero.
So this officially decanonizes the name Devon Aidendale.
Oh, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah, that was the name that was picked by Lori's co-author of the Prima Strategy Guides.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it was appropriate for those books for her to name the character and give it an identity so that she could tell stories about a character. Mm-hmm. But the games are all about, being not yourself so much, but the hero that is within you. And so the hero is you. And that's why we have this new game series called Hero You. It's a play on the hero within you and Hero University. And that's the grown-up version of the School for Heroes that we did on the web. That we went to the next level with the Hero You. But the hero within you definitely is a theme of the game. Sean is actually, he's kind of a special person with a destiny. But the player makes the decisions.
Yeah, don't expect him to be like top of the class there on your first playthrough. It's not going to happen. It's not.
No, it
is
isn't
not
easy,
easy. I didn't get it on my first at all, or my second. So
I've got just a light-hearted one, just to have fun with, one in a desperate attempt to not ask you guys something you've been asked before. Sorry. All right, so it kind of goes back to our earlier chat about the hero worship or kind of the celebrity-dom, which is not a word unless you force it to be one, which I just did. That's life canon now. So we're all obviously kind of fascinated with you guys, with the two guys, with Jane, with everybody at Sierra at the time. So I'm wondering, I'm guessing a different answer from each of you, but if you were given the task of writing the next Sierra game, from one of your colleagues at the time, what would you pick? So in other words, would you pick, a Space Quest title or
interesting.
etc.?
Of the other games out there,
I want to see you guys actually do Lisa Shoot Larry 3.
4, yeah.
4, yeah.
Wouldn't have been
4.
my choice, I'll tell you. Actually,
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
I was thinking Space Quest. Those are really cool games. Of course, they don't need us. Space Quest doesn't need us. I mean, Mark and Scott have got their own thing going and do it really well.
And their own type of humor, so we wouldn't be able to duplicate that kind of humor. Honestly, though, the world that intrigued me the most was Gabriel Knight. And I would have loved to have done something with that kind of thing, and I would have loved to do something with that, Tim Curry as the voice,
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah,
so
yeah.
Good.
But, not that I actually played any of her games. Sorry to say, I just don't play adventure games, but I loved her stories that she was doing.
Well, yeah,
And
writer first and foremost, for sure.
Yeah. So the Sierra game that we'd really like to make a sequel of is Monkey Island.
Yeah, really.
Or
You guys could
alternatively
probably do
Indiana
something
Jones.
cool with like the Conquest series, like maybe Conquest of Charlemagne or something.
Yeah. I would not be that type of person though, because Christy did a grand job, and she knew her history.
Oh, yes.
And
She really did.
her past, and that passion for the history and the real stories behind the mythos, that takes work. It's easier to make this stuff up.
Yeah, comment Ken Williams made in his book on Not All Fairy Tales Have Happy Endings. Ken Williams commented that he chose designers based on passion, people that obviously really cared about, the genre they were in. And, I mean, I can think of lots of different, I probably wouldn't look to other Sierra game series. I'd probably look to films or TV series that we might want to make into a game.
Yeah, I'm just sorry that Christy could not continue to be a game designer, because I think she would have come up with some more brilliant games. I really consider her one of the best of the game designers, as opposed to storytellers, which Jane is an excellent storyteller, and so is Christy. But Christy also understood games.
She understood games and people's brains and cartoons. I went to a gem-themed party when I was a kid. Like, it was everywhere. She just was a part of my life in so many different ways.
Yep. So that was the only sorrowful thing I had, is that I would have loved to have more from Christy.
And in general, we had some amazing co-workers at Sierra. Ellen Guan Beeman, brilliant game designer and writer. So, really good people. Gain O'Hain, really good. So Josh Mandel, of course, and we talked Josh into writing comedic bits in Hero U, and I don't know. If I look back, I say maybe we kind of overdid the punmanship and that, but
No such thing.
You can't overdo it. No.
But I was kind of trying to play off what we did in Quest for Glory, and really went to an extreme with that, but. That's what I have fun, putting in a little bit of absurdity into stuff. And I didn't have time to do that for Hero U, and Josh stepped in and took over what would have been my role, and I'm so grateful. He did such a great job.
He did. Oh, it's so funny. That game, I mean, it's the kind of game where you can get a pun that's so bad it makes you groan and leave the room and nobody else is in the room. It's that good.
That'll learn you for playing our games.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, it's beautiful. Okay, well, this is fun. I could go on talking, but I'm not the editor, so I'm going to move on to listener mailbag. I've got a bunch of questions here from some fans over in the Classic Gamers Guild on Facebook. The first question is from Jude Gore, and he wants to know, a certain movie series bears more than a striking resemblance to The Secret of Monkey Island. Are there any movies or TV shows you've watched and thought, hang on, we did that first? Not looking for accusations or plagiarism, but more so coincidences, unless there is plagiarism involved. In that case,
So we're talking Pirates of the Caribbean, and that of course, has the history of originally it was a ride at Disneyland, but back before it was a ride at Disneyland, it was really a play off the Treasure Island movie, which in fact was previously a book, and that was romancing the idea of pirates and piracy and so on, and then Pirates of the Caribbean 2, I think it was based on a Tim Powers novel on Stranger Tides.
That was 3. That was 4.
Oh, was that 3?
Actually, 4.
4? Whatever.
4
It was based on Tim Powers on Stranger Tides, which is a very dark look at piracy and voodoo and so on. And so there's, all these references cross over because everybody, remembering those old movies and books of their youth, is fascinated by the idea of pirates and cool ideas. So, similarly, Ron Gilbert and company were fascinated by the idea of, cartoon pirates, and came up with a Secret of Monkey Island. And so, everybody borrows from everything else. I don't recall what, but he mentioned that he borrowed some stuff in Secret of Monkey Island from Quest for Glory and was influenced by it. And I felt, and I don't remember what also, but I feel like we were influenced a little bit writing Quest for Glory 2 by talking with them. So, so what movies influenced us? Young Frankenstein.
Great movie. I love
definitely
that movie.
Was an influence for Quest for Glory 4.
So funny.
Yeah, my other favorite horror movie genre thing is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And I don't care for the kind of humor of most Abbott and Costello things because they tend to be kind of slapstick and derogatory. I don't like humor that puts somebody down. This one doesn't put people down, and it has some visual gags that I have not. And you can't. You say, oh, why didn't I see that coming? They gave the lead into a joke, and then they paid off at the end, and it was just brilliant.
Beautiful.
And comedy is a really, really tough thing to pull off. So,
yeah, so all the, Errol Flynn swashbucklers and so like the Sinbad and early, old Aladdin movie, and so on, where influence is clearly on Quest for Glory 2. Probably more so than the actual books, although we did get a 12-volume set of 1001 Arabian Nights to read through at least a few of before we did Quest for Glory 2, or while we were writing it. So lots of influences from there. But yeah, we definitely wanted to have that kind of... what was your favorite? Oh, The Court Jester is one of Laurie's favorite movies.
Oh, yeah.
With Danny Kaye and...
I love Danny Kaye.
Hilarious.
Was there ever a time?
Yeah. So, yeah, we had some Marx Brothers. We had the Maltese Falcon. And that had to do with... some of the things, like we had Jerry Moore just kind of put in miscellaneous objects into the treasure room in Hero's Quest, and one of them was a blackbird, that was based in the Maltese Falcon, and so we had to write that into all the future storylines. So that's where I say, stuff that wasn't originally intended to be canon suddenly becomes canon.
Yeah, it did. It took on a whole life of its own.
Was there ever a time that you saw... Oh, sorry. I was just wondering if there was ever a time you saw like Quest for Glory within another game or within a book or a show or a movie where you're like, did the writer play our game?
Well, we joked about that with all the Disney films because Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin came out about 2 or 3 years after Quest for Glory 2, which is our Arabian Nights game. And so I said, maybe somebody in that team played Quest for Glory 2 and decided it was time for a Arabian Nights movie. And
right.
Hercules came out not long after. Was it Hercules came out after Quest for Glory 5? Or you mentioned a different one, Lori.
Yeah, well, Africa, Fricana.
Well, the Lion King.
They had the Lion King.
Yeah, the Lion King came up a couple years after that.
Simba, the name Simba alone.
Really, yeah. So we were just, it's like, okay, Disney clearly looked at our games. Yeah,
was our Africa game. So so we joked that Disney got all their ideas for ideas of movies from our games. I'm sure it was a matter of independent artistic creativity. But you also get things like seeing a movie or playing a game or something. You kind of get that picture in the back of your head, and you may come up with it seemingly independently and actually have some influence. But it's not like
every time I see the movie A
anything.
Knight's Tale, I just keep thinking of the like the perfect Quest for Glory movie. Plus Heath Ledger looks like he'd be the perfect hero.
Well, yeah, I guess he would. He was kind of that.
Well, he had the shaggy blonde hair and everything.
Yes, the right.
Was Basil Baker Street an influence on your Familiar story?
No, it wasn't. But I mean, I really would like to do that game.
See, what was the Don Bluth one with rats?
Oh, no, that wasn't. Oh, well, there was Nim, Mrs.
Oh, the Rats
of Nim. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, he did so much stuff. I just got Space Ace for the PlayStation 2 the other day. I was so excited.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's the right way to play it. One, you didn't have to play a quarter for every time you died.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was an expensive one
Dragon
to play.
Slayer was nasty.
Yeah.
So hard.
But,
so the next
beautiful.
question I have is this is from Rick Highbury, of course, again from the Classic Gamers Guild, and he'd like to know, why was Quest for Glory Shadows of Darkness not numbered in its title?
That's a good question. Any idea?
Not one we can answer. I don't think it was, a real decision on anybody's part. Yes.
It just happened.
Yeah. What I always worried about Quest for Glory 2, Trial by Fire, because there was no Quest for Glory 1 at that point, and you came out with a Quest for Glory 2, and I worried that players would see that and say, oh, well, I haven't played that series, I guess I'll pass. And because of the terms of the, I was going to say agreement, but more demand from Games Workshop, that we were not allowed to publicize that Quest for Glory 2 was a sequel to Heroes Quest. Could not mention Heroes Quest in any of the marketing materials.
Right.
So I think we lost a lot of momentum there. And, it may be that by the time you're up to, each of our games really is designed to play independently. So marketing may have decided that putting a 4 on a game title would, lose us some players that hadn't played the first 3. So, what about was it Quest for Glory 5 Dragonfire or just Quest for Glory Dragonfire?
No, it was Quest for Glory 5, definitely.
It had to be on there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know, because I have two of them. I have one with the seal and one without the seal.
Who was the one that said consistency is the bugaboo of little minds?
Yep. We're not consistent.
So we definitely had some problems with trademarks. We lost our Heroes Quest trademark, and later on we had Quest for Glory 3 Wages of War, and we're told we weren't allowed to use Wages of War as a subtitle. So we put some work into coming up with a new subtitle, Seekers of the Lost City, that I don't think anything was ever released under that title.
No, I never heard that.
It's still in the when you go into the information of the game, like the about, it has it in there.
Oh, okay. But like the Heroes Quest thing, the game that we were supposedly competing about, the board game was called Advanced Hero Quest. So it's not the same thing as Heroes Quest. And, they had Advanced as part of it. And they had licensed the name to a group to make an Advanced Hero Quest video game, but it wasn't done. We released first. So by all rights, we should have had the rights to the name, and they should have had to change theirs. But basically Sierra didn't want to fight a court battle against Games Workshop, and I think Milton Bradley had the U.S. license for that.
I was so
big board
mad
game
when
company,
that happened.
deep pockets, they didn't want to fight it.
I remember being 5 years old and seeing the commercials for it and being all excited about my favorite video game being a board game, and then here I am 30 years later, and it's like, I still have not touched a Hero Quest board game because 5-year-old me got so mad.
Well, I did buy a copy of Advanced Hero Quest, the board game, so we could play it and find out what it was all about. And it's an entertaining game. We only played it like twice.
I've heard it's fun. I just refuse to play it on principle now.
Yeah, that's good. You stick to those principles no matter how obsolete they are.
Stand your ground, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I was really mad about when I was younger that, as I got older, I think, that was a long time ago, and they had reasons for doing what they're doing, and it's pretty silly to stay mad at somebody that's probably a perfectly reasonable person that I had a conflict once upon a time.
Oh, there's no logic behind it now. I just, don't want to change
fine.
now.
Yeah, we support you, Josh, in that.
Yep.
So I'm going to move right along. We're just about out of time here, but I have a few more questions I'd love to get to. One is from Sean McCauley, again of the Classic Gamers Guild group on Facebook. Hey, Lori and Corey, I'm an English teacher, and most of my favorite games involve literacy. Now that most games are voiced, how do you feel that has affected gaming at large? Do you develop games differently now that they're voiced, and how did leaving the parser change your development approach? So that's kind of a 2-in-1.
Yeah.
Listen, I tell you, Igor's death must be avenged.
Well, we made an explicit decision with Hero U Rogue Redemption not to use voice, and that we didn't really make that decision. My son made that decision, and he told us that he had played a whole bunch of indie games and JRPGs and so on that had just awful amateur voices, and he said they ruined the game. So he said that unless we were prepared to spend $100,000 and get professional voice actors, that we should not have voice at all.
I think he's right. I think bad voices, no voice is better than bad voices.
And that was his theory on that. And so that meant that I was free to write as much as I wanted to in dialogue.
And boy, did she write a lot.
And boy, did I.
Much.
Yes, I've written novels. That's a novel there. I mean, it exceeds Harry Potter 3 in terms of wordage. So
just going into the library, I sat there one time for 20 minutes just leafing through the one book alone. Just reading through the lore that you wrote for the series.
Yeah, so therefore, the games get very, very, very wordy. Because I know I don't have anybody counting word count, and because words are cheap as opposed to art or anything else. So it's the easiest part to con, and that's my specialty. So therefore, it gets really, really story-driven.
Unfortunately, Hero U did not sell as well as we expected it to, and there was a lot of reasons for that, many of them have nothing to do with voice, but one of the pieces of feedback that I got over and over again is, this game really needs voice. It would have been so much improved by having strong voices. So I made the executive decision for Summer Days Tilly's Tale that we would have voice acting for it. And we met Dave Gilbert at PAX fall of 2019, and he said that he could voice direct it and use non-union but professional voice actors out of New York, and that would be much less expensive than we thought it would be. And it turns out that, in fact, with the pandemic going on, it was even less expensive than he originally quoted, because he didn't have to hire a studio time. And, it's always a worry of everybody using their home studios, of whether you have consistency of sound levels and so on. But
of course.
And we ended up getting some amazing voice actors for this. Zura Fazal, who's playing the lead role of Tilly, and has a gazillion lines. I think she had 8 recording sessions to do it.
Wow.
is
And we'll need to bring her back into the studio to do some pickup lines. So
yeah. But she is just unbelievably talented, and she could have done every female voice in the game and one of the male voices because she has such a range and such varying voices and so on. And I decided that because she was doing the most important role in the game that we'd keep her just for that. But she's really talented, and all of the actors and actresses we got are just really good. So we're going to have some wonderful voice acting in Summer Days. And, I'm kind of tempted, but, it's one of those, catch-22 things is having not sold that well on Hero U. We don't have the money to afford to add voices to at this point to find that would sell better. But in future, I'm gonna push for having voices in the games because I think they add a lot.
And that this game of Summer Days does not have nearly as much text as Road to Redemption. It was designed to be a simpler game, to have a smaller budget, and yet it's still got a lot of words.
But we didn't actually answer the question. And the actual answer to the question is we did mixed up fairy tales that was supposed to teach reading to preschool students learning how to read, and that is a text-only game, and I felt that was just the worst mistake ever, that you cannot really teach reading and writing unless you have the voice to reinforce the written word.
You make a good
so
point.
I think that I think voice really adds to literacy. Voice without text, not so much.
No, I need it to be both for various reasons. I mean, sometimes I'm playing a game in a busy environment and I need to be able to turn the voice off and still play the game. But it doesn't mean I don't like the voice or I don't enjoy the voice. I mean, when I go back and play games that have voice, I do like to leave it on. It's good memories and stuff too. But the other part of the question was just briefly, and I'm not even sure how you can do this concisely, but the question being, how did leaving the parser change your development approach?
Yeah, it's a totally different way of looking at a game. I mean, the puzzle design and that have to be redone because parser makes it easy to do puzzles because, frankly, trying to do anything with a parser is a puzzle. I mean, trying to pick a lock, find the right words to do that, or pick up something off the table, you have to find the right words to pick it up. It's, it all makes everything complicated. The simplest things. And honestly, that's not the kind of game I like to play. I want to play something that lets me have a story rather than trying to figure out how to pick up a book off a table. So therefore, I was happy when we went to the parserless games because it made things simpler. It made things that you weren't thinking about the interface, you're thinking about the story.
Like having to say portcullis instead of gate to get to
right. Yes.
Get into the castle.
Yes.
Although you guys did teach me that word, so thank you.
Yeah, your games taught us a few words,
portcullis.
For sure.
Yes.
Of course, I used to call it porticulus when I was a kid.
Oh, mine was
the game in itself.
Mine was melancholy. I learned most of my vocabulary by reading, and so I read this word melancholy, and when I heard the song "Melancholy Baby" and so on, it never in my life occurred to me that was the same word that I knew as melancholy.
Oh, that's great.
And there have been a number of other words that we mispronounce. Let's see. Victuals, of course. I was corrected by my my friend Kanita. Said, "What? Victuals. The word is victuals." And it's to me, no, it's victuals. It's written as victuals. It's clearly not victuals. But
mine's
that is how
every time I see it, I thought it was Aury, and it's AWRRY. So. You see it, your brain doesn't
awry.
Parrot.
Yes.
Yeah. Or macabre. Macabre. What?
Macabre. The R is silent there.
Exactly.
So she still can't pronounce.
No. It's like that word.
My most recent one was driving by Penelope's bookshop, but I was always calling it Penelope's bookshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I had just enough Spanish and French and German in high school that I'm probably a little bit of a snob about using European pronunciations for vowels, and I actually had a D&D character who has a fake French accent. It says right in the character sheet, it's a fake French accent. So he has a really bad fake French accent. So I love speaking my imitation French.
That is wonderfully bad.
That's actually borderline too good.
Merci,
Mixed opinions.
Yeah.
But yes, I did have 1 year of French in high school.
All right, well, that's about, I wanted to get to more questions, but that's about all the time we have. Before we wrap up...
I'm going to edit it all down. You guys actually have to get to sleep sometime?
Well, no, actually. I mean, we'll just keep going all night. But I'm not the editor, so, you know.
That's true. It only makes it tougher. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we tend to give long answers to simple questions.
Oh, I love it. It's just absolutely my favorite. I love it, the long answers. Any shout-outs you want to give out, things that you're working on, dates, things are coming up, anybody you want to say hi to?
Oh, got tons of them. Well, first of all, of course, if you have a Nintendo Switch, or if you know anyone who has a Nintendo Switch, you really should be getting Hero U Rogue Redemption for them on the Switch, because it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's our chance at livelihood. I've already made the shout out to Sid Meier's memoir. You definitely should read that book if you're interested in the inside story of what it's like to be a game designer. And of course, Sid Meier is the game designer's game designer. There's a lot of books that are either out or coming out. There's the Sierra Adventure by Sean Mills. There is Ken Williams' Not All Fairy Tales Have Happy Endings. It's about the business side of Sierra Online. I'm working on a book with Jason Michael, which is Mical, and that will be out possibly later this year. That is an in-depth look at Quest for Glory and the game itself and the making of, and Lori and me and our other games, so a little bit of everything, but it's kind of the ultimate Quest for Glory book. I think we're calling it Questing for Glory. What else as far as adventure games? I was blown away with Quest for Infamy that was done by
yes. Stephen Alexander. Yeah.
Stephen Alexander, who's had his health problems with kidneys and so on, but Quest for Infamy is it's a really professional fan-made game that just stands right up there with anything Sierra did. Is an excellent game.
Complete love letter to everything that Sierra's done.
Yeah, and I definitely have to give a shout out to Dave Gilbert, who's been really helpful to us with our voice recordings and so on. His game last year was Avowed. He's working with Richard Cobbett, formerly of Rock Paper Shotgun, on a vampire game called Nighthawks. That should be a lot of fun. A really heavily story-oriented game. So there's a lot of good work still being done. And unfortunately, a little too much of it, which makes it tough to be a developer. But there are choices out there, and there's good stuff. Did you want to say anything, Lori, now that I've monopolized that?
Yeah, really. I was going to say we're going to have Summer Days at Hero U, Tilly's Tale coming out this year.
Yay!
And we'll also have, at some point, Ifeo's game. Ifeo's Adventures, which is his adventures, and the thing with Tilly's Tale takes place the summer before Sean gets to the school. But Ifeo is there the summer after Sean's adventures. So the events that happened in Sean's game really start to the ball rolling on what's going on. And so therefore at Ifeo's game, the game has the story world is getting a little more serious.
Right.
Yeah, we could
And,
say if we ever get around to doing Hero U Wizard Way, that Faye's adventure will be the lead into that, as teaching more about what's going on in the wizard classes and so on, and a little bit of that the dark undertones to the world of Hero U. But Tilly's Tale in particular is a lighter game. It's more of a fantasy storybook that's an interactive storybook, so you choose your own path through it. But it's it's not a heavy RPG where you have combats and stuff like that. So it's more of a game that you'll read and collaborate in the writing along with Lori as you go through it.
It's role-playing light. Yes.
There's a demo too, right? You can go ahead and give that a download. And please
there's a playable demo on itch.io on our page that hopefully somebody will link for us.
Yep. We will definitely.
We have a Patreon. We should make a shout out for our Patreon. So patreon.com/Corey Lori Cole, and you got to spell our names right though. It's COREYLORI. Corey Lori Cole is where people subscribe to see Lori's photography and our old articles from the spell book and from the quest log blog and new stuff I'm writing and just whatever we put in there. And that's also a way of supporting our debauched and excessive lifestyle of sitting at home in front of our computers playing games.
And of course, I've seen you guys
visit our
around
Patreon if you want to either learn more about our stuff or contribute to our development.
And of course, I've seen you guys around on Twitch as well. You know, you're out there and saying hi to people and talking to the fans. Right now, it's kind of I'm used to talking at you guys through the keyboard and hearing you respond back to me. This is great. It's actually like interactive voice wise back and forth. But honestly, in Twitch, it is so much fun. And you guys do games and contests and there's prizes. And then, you read stories sometimes at the end. So it's a lot of fun.
We're trying to do it every 2 weeks now on a regular basis. And it starts at 2 p.m. Pacific time, California time, every other Saturday. And it's on twitch.com/TranssolarGames.
All right, mates, that's all the time we've got for today, but thank you so much to our guests for joining us today. Josh Orion Koss, love you, mate. Please say hello to him over at the Classic Gamers Guild if you're there. And to Lori and Corey Cole, love you guys. It's always an absolute pleasure and honor to be able to speak with you. So thank you for your time. Look forward to speaking to you guys here on the podcast again soon, perhaps. So on to the obligatory closing of the show. Thank you again for listening to us. Please find us on Facebook. We're a group. We're a page. You can come bloody join the discussion. Jump on in, have some fun with us talking about these silly old things that we love. You can also find us on Instagram at CGG Podcast. We're over at Twitter. You can do us a tweet at the CG Guild. If you'd like to send us an email, mail@classicgamersguild.com. And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons. Thank you so much for making this show possible, for covering costs involved in doing this and hosting it, all the way down to validating, justifying, giving us motivation and reason to keep getting together once a week to record these shows for your hopeful enjoyment. And of course, an extra special thanks to those in said tier, Mark Fillion and Jay Holmes. You guys are legends. We love you. As a part of responsible broadcasting, I'll sign off by encouraging you to just don't do murder.